I want you all to leave. Would you like to be arrested? If you're in the media, please leave. The media can stay, excuse me, there's no cameras. You can turn your camera off. You can turn your camera off and stay.
Okay.
No cameras in the building. Because this is a financial building. You're on the floor with financial business.
Excuse me, who are you?
Please. Property manager.
What's your name?
My name, John Cocktoson. Please turn your cameras off. Please turn your cameras off.
Just what's your name? I turn them.
John Cocktoson, that's fine.
Okay, what company are you with?
I'm sorry?
What company?
Financial Plaza, LLC.
Okay, thank you.
There are other businesses in here working. I understand what you're doing. If you could, please turn the camera off, sir.
This is my civil rights record.
Okay, all right. Well, you're going to lift it down.
Hands. Get that to your lowest adjustment.
Marching today, the lineage and legacy of Dr. King, Rosa Parks, who were members of the Alabama State Conference of the NAACP, and who are, spiritually and morally speaking, the forebears of our State Conference President, Bernard Simonton. And we are marching to this office building, to the session, which we understand is no session! No session! No session! No session! The border. No session! To no session! Refugees. No session!
I do believe we shall not be moved today. We shall not be moved. We shall not be in our hearts. I do believe we shall not be moved today.
There's a weight limit. Can I ask y'all to please get off?
No session.
Fired up? Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Fired up? Ready to go?
Ready to go.
We are here in Mobile, Alabama, standing in the lineage and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. We stand in the lineage and the legacy of martyrs of the NAACP who stood up unapologetically, courageously against those who stood against their rights and the rights of Americans. We're here because we understand that if you go down to Washington and walk the floors of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, you see on the walls, among the artifacts and the pictures, beautiful faces displaying courage and boldness and determination. And we understand that the museum is a testament to a civil rights era of decades ago. But we know that we are in the midst of a Twitter-age civil rights movement. We are the leaders we've been looking for. We are standing up today against the civil rights challenges of our time. And so this day, two questions, two queries, two moral interrogatives arrive on our doorstep. The first of which is why and why act? Why oppose Senator Jeff Sessions as our Attorney General, and why must we act and act now? when you pose the question, why oppose Senator Sessions? Why did we gather only a few weeks ago in this very place? Why did we break the law? Why were we arrested? Why did we go to jail? Why have thousands and hundreds of thousands of Americans across the length and breadth of our republic called their senators to say no to Senator Jeff Sessions? Why are they running campaign-style commercials for Senator Sessions in red states and blue states as though they are afraid, and they should be? Why? Why? Because his record is not one that makes him fit to serve as Attorney General of these United States. This is an Attorney General who stood against every effort to put forward comprehensive immigration reform in this country, not realizing that we are in fact a nation of immigrants, not realizing that when you consider the history of the Great Migration, when African Americans fled Jim Crow terrorism in the Deep South to go north for a relative measure of freedom, it might be said of the descendants of slaves, when we left South Carolina, when we left Mississippi, when we left Alabama, when we left Florida to seek a measure of freedom in the north, we were not the N-word. We were not merely former slaves. We were refugees in our country. And so when we think about anybody being turned around, anybody having the door shut in their face, our heart grieves, our heart aches. We think about Jews being turned around in America's oceans, seeking freedom, seeking relief from Hitler's Germany and Nazism. We think about people fleeing persecution and terrorism and misogyny, and women and girls being taken into sexual slavery, and we say no to Jeff Sessions as our Attorney General. Stop Sessions! Stop Sessions! We, at this moment, when people ask us why do we oppose a sitting senator? Why do we oppose someone who might be accorded senatorial deference because of his long-standing and high-standing and tenure in the Senate? We think about members of the LGBT community who had their humanity called into question, their dignity called into question. Having a senator stand against every measure of protection for members of the LGBTQ community, and we say, if you can't protect the rights of gays and lesbians, you can't protect the rights of all Americans, because all Americans come in all orientations, all colors, of every hue, and of every heritage. If you can't stand with them, you can't stand with us, because us includes all of us. When we think about the history of Alabama,
All right.
this state, in a small town called Selma, gave birth to the Voting Rights Act. In Selma, blood was shed, tears were shed, sweat and sacrifice were offered, and we literally created the Voting Rights Act out of the blood, sweat, and tears of the NAACP. And so we must take moral notice of a man who begrudgingly offered support for the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act, and when it was gutted, he cheered for its weakening, he cheered for its debilitation, he cheered for the disabling of the Voting Rights Act, as though we would not take notice. And when politicians drunk with power began to mouth the myth of voter fraud as a pretext for more voter suppression, what did he do? He didn't call out voter fraud and support call out voter fraud and stand against voter suppression. He, in fact, lent credibility to voter fraud and cheered voter suppression. And we say to you, if you do not respect the rights that our forebears gave their lives for, we must oppose you day in and day out unrelentingly. If you can't call grabbing a woman's genitalia assault, we can never call you Attorney General. And when we think about what we've come through over the last 2 years, Freddie Gray's Baltimore, Tamir Rice's Cleveland, Sandra Bland's Texas, Laquan McDonald's Chicago, Michael Moore, Alabama. When we think about all of our children who've been racially profiled, when we think about the ways that they've been demeaned and denigrated and degraded by the rough treatment of police officers, a minority of whom are drunk with power. And when we think about President Trump calling for, in Nixonian and draconian terms, law and order. And we have Senator Sessions, again, mouthing support for policies that don't work, that hurt people, leave our community decimated. We say no to Senator Sessions. Now we have a why in terms of proposing Senator Sessions. But I want you to answer the question, why not act? In this state, a young preacher by the name of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., imbibing, influenced by the love ethic of Jesus, influenced by the moral example of Leo Tolstoy and Mohandas K. Gandhi, broke the law in order that the law might be fulfilled. And so I'm saying to you this afternoon, where we have a man being nominated for the highest law enforcement office in the country, who is not committed to the just application of the law and justice for everyone and equal justice under the law, I ask you, is this not the time to break the law that we might have a more effective Attorney General? Because be clear, what we've seen coming out of this White House is not only sobering, not only frightening, not only alarming, but it is a call to action. Because the choice before us is not between liberalism and conservatism, but authoritarianism and democracy.